Okay, all right. Okay, we'll do. Okay, I'll make sure. Okay, Betty. All right, it's 3 o'clock. We'd like to welcome everyone to our monthly meeting. At this time, Betty, could you read the declaration of emergency meeting electronically?
Yes. On May 5th, 2020, the Middlesex Board of Supervisors ratified a declaration of emergency issued by the county's Director of Emergency Management and adopted an ordinance to ensure continuity of county government. A copy of this ordinance can be found on the county's website under Board of Supervisors Ordinances number 81. These procedures include the ability for the Board of Supervisors and other county public entities to conduct electronic meetings. Information on how to access these meetings by video and telephone will be posted on the county website. The provisions of the ordinance and electronic meetings is in effect for a period of 6 months unless amended, rescinded, or readopted by the Board of Supervisors. An audio recording is being made of the meeting, and which will be linked from the county's website. Notice of the meetings along with access information has been posted on the county's website and at the front of the historic courthouse. An electronic meeting link was also sent to those persons that have asked to be a part of the board's agenda list. As each person joins the meeting, the public audio will be muted to avoid background noise, and the board and staff audio will be open. If a meeting calls for public comment, the chairman will announce that the meeting is open for comments and public lines will be unmuted. Those with an audio connection should use *9, which will notify the moderator that you wish to comment. To unmute your own phone, you should use *6. Those with video capability are to use the raise hand feature to be recognized by the chair. Each person will be given 3 minutes to speak, and each speaker must identify themselves when speaking. All votes will be by roll call and recorded in the minutes. Board members who leave the meeting or arrive must verbally note their attendance. If all board members are not joined by video, a roll call will be made every 2 hours to confirm a quorum.
Okay, board members, any questions about this process? If not, this essential business of the board is being done. The purpose of this meeting is for our regular business meeting in August. At this time, could we have roll call?
Mr. Koontz, who I do not see present on video. Mr. Mansfield, and you need to unmute your phone.
Sorry.
Mr. Mansfield is present. Mr. Williams? Mr. Williams?
Reggie, your mic on? Oh, okay.
Mr. Williams is present, but I don't hear him. Oh,
Present.
there you go. Mr. Kimbrough
Present.
and Mr. Jesse is present.
Present.
So that's 4 of 5 board members, so you have a quorum.
All right. Okay, so at this time, I would just like to open us up with prayer. Let us bow our heads in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we'd like to thank you for just waking us up this morning, dear Lord. And I know we had a hurricane come through, but you know, we were blessed to make it through this hurricane, dear Lord. And dear Lord, I know we're going through a pandemic, but dear Heavenly Father, just let us be respectful to each other as we go through this thing that's going on in the world all over. And dear Lord, let us make wise and just decisions as we conduct county business today. These and all the blessings in my Heavenly Father's name, amen. At this time, Matt, could you lead us in the pledge of allegiance to the flag?
Yes, would all citizens of our nation join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Matt. First on the agenda would be public comment. and I will read the procedures for electronic meetings. The chairman will invite each and additional person other than the board members and staff attending the meeting to make a comment. Those attending the meeting with video capability will use the raise hand feature to request a speech. Those with audio capability will use the *9 feature on their phone, which will indicate the moderator that you wish to speak. Use *6 to unmute your phone. Each speaker will give his or her name and address for the record. Each speaker or individual will be given the opportunity to speak during the public comment period and or each public hearing item. All comments and remarks will be addressed to the board of supervisors and not to the audience. Speakers will be given 3 minutes to speak. At this time, Kevin, I'll leave this up to you to see who's going to speak at this time. You have anybody?
Chairman, I don't see anyone with their hand raised at this time.
All right.
I do
Well, I
have
know Betty has a letter.
I have a written comment that was received, yes.
Okay.
This is from H.R. Perkinson III and Jean Perkinson Holman, trustees of the Herbert R. Perkinson Jr. Trust. They are regarding airport comments, concerns about unsolicited public-private partnership proposal. Prospect, our family's historic home at 2847 Grays Point Road, is adjacent to Hummel Field on the eastern side of the runway. Prospect was built in the early 1800s and is designated as a Virginia Historic Landmark and listed in the National Register of Historic Places. Prospect and the property on which it sits are currently owned by the Herbert R. Perkinson Jr. Trust, of which we are the trustees. They have attached a copy of the February 28, 2019 letter to the Middlesex County Board of Supervisors, which details their concerns about the proposed expansion of Hummel Field and runway realignment specifications first described in the consultant's airport development feasibility study for the county dated December 21st, 2018. The study and our letter were part of the board's March 5th, 2019 meeting packet. Our concerns detailed in that letter regarding the proposed realignment specifications for the runway are our same concerns with the realignment specified in the public-private partnership proposal, the proposal currently being considered by the county. Our property is a residential property that would be the most adversely affected by the runway realignment specified in the Delaware Corporation's proposal. The proposal does not address our concerns in any way or look for ways to try to lessen the negative impact on our property. Page 4 of the proposal states the following, which includes false information. This is from the proposal. Projected adverse conditions. The north end of the new runway will be rotated 6 degrees to the east. The new alignment will rotate about its southernmost axis. This rotation will cause it to be closer to the property on the east side of the southern end of the runway. The amount will be a few feet and exact distance is yet to be determined. End quote. The last sentence grossly underestimates the negative impact on our property, which is located east of the runway near the southern end. If plotted out by scale, the 6-degree rotation would actually bring the runway just under 100 feet closer to our land and house, not just, quote, a few feet. The result of adverse impacts to our property take from and damage the residue of our property. The negative impacts include, but are not limited to, the following. Runway realignment rotation specified in the proposal will be closer and produce more noise and otherwise negatively impact the property, with even more noise and negative impact if the airport is upgraded to accommodate more twin-engine planes. The stand of tall evergreen trees behind the house is an important buffer for the 3-story house. They help buffer airport noise from airport plane warm-ups, accelerations, and takeoffs. The planes provide a protected setting for the historic house and help shelter it visually from the airport and nearby commercial area. The building restriction line would move significantly further into our property. The related height restrictions are also a major concern, taking away from us future uses of the affected property. At our request, we also met with the county administrator, assistant administrator, and the Harmony Village supervisor on August 19th, 2019, to discuss our concerns and suggest possible runway realignment adjustments and other means that would lessen the negative impact on our land and house and still allow for runway realignment. If the proposal and the approximate runway realignment specified in it are to be pursued before a contract and specifications are finalized, we would like to work collaboratively with the county on a solution that is fair and addresses our concerns. If you have any questions or to further discuss this matter, please contact us with their emails.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Betty. And I got to back up here. We got to have approval of the consent agenda, which consists of meeting agenda page 1 through 4, minutes of July the 7th, 2020, and regular meeting, and disbursement and payroll. Are there any additions or corrections to the consent agenda? If not, roll call, Betty.
Mr. Kuntz is now present. Mr. Kuntz, if you'd like to vote.
Yeah, just wanted to mention, I got here at 3:05. Aye.
Okay. Mr. Mansfield,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse.
Aye. Thank you. Next on the agenda would be constitutional officer. We have the treasurer, Kathy Thrift, on page 44 to 48.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. Before you move on, is the public comment period now closed?
Oh,
We opened it, but I don't think we closed it.
right.
If there's
Okay,
no
yeah.
one else who wants to
Sorry
speak.
about that, Heather. Thanks for keeping me straight.
No worries.
All right, we have mostly closed, public comment period is closed at this time, okay?
Thank you.
All right. Now we go to item 3, constitutional officer. We have A, treasurer, Kathy Thrift, which is page 44 to 48. And then we have commissioner revenue. Do anybody have any questions for Kathy? I don't know if she's on here or not, but yeah, she's here. Does anybody have any questions for our constitutional officer, treasurer?
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may, and if Kathy's available, I'm just curious if she could speak to the difference in revenue August 4th, 2020 versus August 4th, 2019. Maybe not with specificity to the date, but can maybe Kathy, can you speak to how much we're down and in which categories we're being most impacted?
I didn't hear the beginning of that, John.
Yeah, I'm basically looking with COVID and all that's been going on, are we starting to see an impact versus 2019 at this time? And which categories are we seeing the most impact, if you can speak to that?
I'd have to look into that a little further. As you see from the report, our collections on first half of real estate is up to 94.8, which I believe is more than what we normally collect by this time in 19 for 2019.
Kathy, maybe the better thing to do is ask for September with a little bit more notice, that you give us a sense by category where you're seeing an impact from the recession / depression / COVID / pandemic. You know, how is this impacting us at a snapshot level versus last year at this time in the September meeting?
Okay, all right, I can do that.
Thanks, Kathy.
Uh-huh.
Anybody else have any questions for the treasurer? If not, thank you, Kathy. Next, we have the Commissioner Revenue, May Burke. Anybody have any questions for our Commissioner of Revenue?
Mr. Chair, I would ask the same thing of the Commissioner of Revenue. Just in September, be prepared to tell us how her office has been impacted and you know, what jumps off the page in an executive summary level in terms of the impact from the pandemic.
Okay.
Thanks, mate.
All right. Well, thank you. Next, we have the Sheriff Office, Elaine Cole. Page 49 to 55. Anybody have any questions?
Elaine, you need to unmute your mic.
Or put it on speaker.
Mr. Chairman, while Eileen is working out her audio difficulties, she's also here to brief the board about a grant that we had received a while back and had a modification to. I think you're going to want to hear this. Is pretty good news.
Okay. I think she's on now.
No.
The phone is unmuted, Eileen, but you may need to put it on speaker or hold the handset up to your.
How's that?
Yeah,
Yes.
we hear you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very good.
Thanks.
My first time doing the Zoom meeting, so I apologize. And as Mr. Walker stated, I just wanted to pass on some information. I know about a year ago or a year and a half ago, we had a grant for $427,000 to help us with our next generation 911. But when we ended up going through everything that was needed, it totaled $749,164. So through negotiations with the 911 Services Board and the Commonwealth of Virginia, we now have a grant totaling $893,302. So we have more than enough to cover the cost of the next generation 911, and it also gave us enough money. It included in that grant for text to 911. And just a little background, real quick, the current legacy wired 911 is out of date and unable to support the next generation 911, and Verizon is getting out of the 911 business. So EasyNet meets the core networking standards that public safety answering points, which is what we are, to transition to next generation 911 that will enable us to text, have data, video, and phone communications, as well as emergency voice calls. So it is pretty exciting. EasyNet is nationwide. Fairfax County has already launched theirs. Portsmouth and Franklin are getting ready to launch theirs as we speak. This is a 10-year project or 11-year project that has finally come into fruition. So I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware of what we were doing over here. And also with the Fairfax, they had submitted an RFP and have a cooperative clause that the 911 Services Board supports us using for the AT&T contract. And that's about all that I have. I just wanted you to be aware. I do have to get the contract signed. But it is a lot of money. I do want to let you know that it is a non-matching grant. And the way we set this up is the billing and the payment is going to be done directly between AT&T and the state. So Middlesex County does not have to come up with any of the money for any of this. It's should be fairly painless.
Okay, well, that's great information there.
I have a question. I'm curious
Sure.
the expected date when this goes live might be.
Well, we were supposed to do it the second quarter. As you see, that we're lost time on that. From the time that the contract is signed, it's probably going to be about 4 months.
4 months. Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I had one question. Who initiated this grant, meaning from Middlesex's side? Who knew that this was an opportunity and who pursued it?
Me, Eileen.
Eileen, we're in a debt of gratitude. It's not often that people bring down $900,000 worth of added value to the community. And I want to thank you and the entire Sheriff's Department, because this is a huge win and we really appreciate what you've done here.
You're certainly welcome. It's a pleasure.
All right. If no one else have any more questions for Eileen, well, thank you and appreciate that, okay?
I think you need to take action on signing that contract, Eileen.
Yes, ma'am. So we probably need Heather to look it over. I do have a deadline. I didn't realize until they sent me the email that the contract needs to be signed by August 24th, which is, there's still time. But I certainly have all the information, and I think I sent it over to you too, Betty, if we can get Heather to look at it real quick and we can get that signed.
Don't we need to vote on whether to go that way?
Yes, Mr. Mansfield, you're correct. So you can make a vote to authorize the chairman to review it, subject to legal counsel review.
I have a motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
I move that we allow the chair to sign this subject to legal review.
all right, we have a motion by John Kunz. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion, but probably second by Pete. Any more discussion? All in favor, roll call.
Mr. Coontz,
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse.
Aye. All right, motion so carried.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next, agency and staff report. We have A, BDOT is report only. That's on page 56 to 57. Next, we have B, school matter, Dr. Gretz.
You actually have Dr. Seitz here today.
Oh, okay, Tracy, okay, I see. All right.
Yes, Dr. Gretz was unable to attend the meeting this afternoon, so I am here in his presence with Karen Murray to assist in our presentation, or actually our request. So you will see that everything is listed on pages, let me put reading glasses on so that I can see. Pages 58 through 69, I'll go through what all of these requests are, and then we're happy to answer any questions you have at the end of that. And so the first appropriation request is an annual carryover of textbook funds moving to the 2021 school year. And the next appropriation request is for school food carryover. That's another annual request carrying over to the 2021 school year. And then the next request is for the CARES fund that we were granted through the Virginia Department of Education, for that to be appropriated to the correct funding. Make sure I'm saying that right, Karen. Appropriation request, we have a $1,000 donation from Sun Tribe Solar for our use during the pandemic time for use in technology. And then we also have the next appropriation request is a donation from the Rotary, a $3,000 donation from Rotary that we're requesting to be moved to the correct line item. And then next group is an annual appropriation of all of our remaining federal funds. So Title I through Title V, and then IDEA. Again, that's an annual request, moving those funds over to the current fiscal year. And then separately, we have CARES Act funding, our request from the Middlesex County portion of CARES funding. And you'll see that the first one is for $199,022, and that is for technology use. And then we have a $10,000 request for laser clean, and that's for use for additional classroom cleaning supplies in the classrooms. And then a $20,000 request to supplement the summer feeding for both cafeteria food and staffing through the beginning of the start of the new year. So I know that was many things we went through. Karen and I are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Quick one, Tracy.
Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you. Secondly, what is the net cost to Middlesex County from all that you just went through?
I'd have to look at that very quickly.
Well, it's $230,000 approximately.
So $230,000 for what we are requesting from what the county received for CARES fund.
Okay, that is mostly because of the virus?
Yes, sir. That's what the CARES funding supports. And so there was funding that was available through the county, and then there was also funding that was available to us, CARES funding through the Department of Education, and that was 290,000, 294,000, flipping back, 290,000. And that was the CARES funding that was allocated to us that we did have to write a grant for it through the Department of Education. And then each locality was issued a certain amount based upon criteria set by the Department of Education.
Was, we got a request for, or we were allowed to make a request, I thought, for almost $1 million to the state based on the virus. Is part of that at least covered by that grant from the state?
Yes, sir. The 230,000 that we are requesting is through that portion that you received from the state.
So what are you saying? The part that is not covered is around 300,000?
And that was covered through the state also, but through the Virginia Department of Education.
So the net cost to us is almost zero, right?
Well, what we are requesting was what you received in a grant.
Yes.
Yes. And that is to support additional expenses that we've incurred, just like additional expenses the county has incurred because of the pandemic.
Right, but that is covered by grants from the state.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm sorry I
No
took so
problem.
long to ask.
No, not at all. It's been very confusing these days, I understand.
I have a question, Tracy.
Yes.
The federal carryover, is that due to the difference in the federal calendar and the county calendar, or is it just unspent in our I'm not sure what the calendar sequence is that causes that carryover.
Okay, I'll let Karen address that one.
We're actually able to carry over the grants that we're given annually. We find out what the grant totals are, usually around October 1, and that's the grant award. And those grant awards are good for an additional 2 years, or 18 months to 2 years. So we have that period of time to spend those funds. Typically, we run about this bit of carryover, which basically, and the money is held at the state level. This transfer is just us moving it from the old set of books to the new set of books. But we have to expend it in a certain amount of time or we will lose it.
But it's more than within the current fiscal year.
Yes, right now it is.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right now. It hasn't always been that way.
Does any other board member have any questions on this supplement request form?
Mr. Chair, would you like a motion for budget supplements FY 2021 3 through 8 first?
I got a couple questions before we go to a motion.
Okay.
Starting at the textbooks from the elementary school. Now, this is money that we have not used this year that we want to carry over to the following year.
That's right.
Okay, and the next one is the account for food.
Correct.
$85,000. In the budget in this year, I just noticed food had a straight line with no balance, no money at all. Now I'm seeing $85,000, and I just wonder where it comes at. Earlier in the year, at one of our meetings, Dr. Gress asked for $290,000 of money that was not spent to be carried over to the food and the kitchen to use it.
That's right.
Now my question is,
150.
how much money is directed we got from the CARES fund that goes to the school? I think y'all said earlier, it was roughly $225,000. Directly to the schools, not the county. The money that went directly to the schools. I'm not talking about the $1 million that they gave the county. And I do understand the everything that we need to put in under COVID-19, we need to do it. But I'm not seeing all the clarity there that needs to be. And I see the request forms and everything that everybody's asking for, but I still wonder where the money is going to. For instance, a lot of stuff is going that we can claim, I feel we can claim, because it'll be underneath COVID. Let's talk about the school bus, for instance. With Potter, I don't know exactly what we're gonna do yet, but they did talk about a spray that you go on the bus and spray the buses because of COVID-19. That was X number of dollars, from my understanding, that was spent. And I don't see a simple line between what we need to take from COVID-19 versus the county. And it seems like money that is being transferred over, how much of that money?
You broke up a little bit at the end. I don't know if it was on our end or.
I'm wondering how much of the money that we have is COVID-19 money versus money being used that the county have gave the schools, which is tax money. What is the difference? I thought COVID-19 would be the first money that we will use. And then we'd be at a, kind of like a standstill to see exactly clarity there. Y'all understand what I'm saying?
I can try to explain to you how school food works. School food has its own checking account. It's not like other GL items. So this checking account can actually overdraw. So those funds have to be in that account up front. It's not something that you can accumulate and take in all year long. Those funds have to come in. And so at the beginning of fiscal 20, we requested $50,000 to be put in that account because it was becoming the expenses of the school food was getting to a point where it wasn't self-sustaining, which is pretty much the way it is across the state. There are most programs are not solvent. So we requested that in order to cover the expenses for July, August, and September of last year until we could start to get some of the federal revenue that comes in, some of the revenue that comes in for the paying children. Then we realized in March that we were not going to be able to continue to pay our staff, which was actually a recommendation from VDOE and all guidance, was that we keep the staff whole for the remainder of the year. And so we were able to find savings in those line items such as substitute teachers, school bus field trips, things like that. We were able to move those funds in order to keep those employees whole. Now, this carryover here that we're requesting is in the bank account itself right now. We're just moving it to the new year, but it's only going to cover July and August and the first part of September. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
And so we're, the other request that we're making is to basically cover the summer feeding program, which is an over and above expense due to COVID, because we would not have done this.
Okay.
And does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense, because I know we got money laying around, and I'm just trying to make sure we get it from the property.
Oh, I absolutely understand. Yeah.
At the end of the day, that it's not coming from the tax base.
That's right.
About as much COVID money as we can use.
Correct.
That don't affect the tax base, because in a roundabout way, the tax base is what we, that's what we gotta have.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
We definitely agree.
Okay, well, if there's no more questions, do we have a motion to approve the budget supplement request form 2021 2 through 8? Because they all supplement request form. I know some of them are donations and COVID, but we had already discussed it. Do we have that motion?
I think if it's 2021, 3 through 8, I'll make that motion. And I just want to correct that the Rotary donation was 3,300 and not 3,000.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, thanks.
We need that
John.
300.
I'd like to
All right.
second the motion.
All right, we have a motion, and been probably seconded by Pete Mansfield. Any more discussion?
Yeah.
If not, roll call.
Mr. Coons,
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse.
Aye. Mhm.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Tracy and Karen, for that information.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask one other question.
Yes. Mhm.
We intend to open the schools more or less on time on a half and half basis. I understand that, and I appreciate all the work that you all must have put into, because I was very impressed with what you've done. Would it help you at all if we contacted our air conditioning people and asked them to make sure that they keep a negative pressure in the school, i.e. we exhaust the air, some portion of the air to get clean makeup air going into your school?
I think Greg's already done that, right? I feel like he did. Yeah, we've already taken care of that in the operations side of things.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
All right. Okay, well, thank you, Tracy.
Mr. Chairman, you do need to take action on the CARES Act funding request from the schools. I did not include a transfer request in there, but their request of the $199,022 that will be paid to Atronica for their computers and that sort of stuff, that will take care of what's already been allotted to the schools. They were allotted $200,000 out of the county's CARES Act money that came in. We have money in the contingency line that we can transfer up to them to cover this other their other request of $30,000, if you would like to do that.
Yes, yeah, I would like to have someone make the motion on that. What was the amount, Betty?
It's of the transfer or the individual request.
The extra money that you stated you need to make a motion.
The extra money would be a total of $30,000, $20,000 that would go to the summer feeding program, and then an additional $10,000 for cleaning kits that they're going to purchase for the classrooms.
All right, do we have a motion for that CARES Act, the $30,000, one for cleaning and also other one for food, a total of $30,000?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by John, second by Lud.
Other way around, it was a motion by Lud, second by Coons.
Okay, all right. Now let me get, okay. Motion by Lud, second by Kuhn. All right, any more discussion?
And that would also include the $200,000 that of the CARES Act money
Of
that
the
was
CARES Act, okay, right. And that,
already approved for them.
all right, we have a motion that has been seconded and approved. All right, all in favor of that motion, go by roll call at this time.
Mr. Coons,
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield,
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
I didn't hear the motion.
It was to approve the CARES Act funding request from the schools in the amount of $199,022 to be paid to Atronica, and then $20,000 for the summer feeding program and $10,000 for their cleaning kits.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
So, Mr. Williams?
Yes.
How would you like to vote on that?
Yes.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye.
So that's unanimous.
All right. Okay, next we have C, which is social service, which is report only, page 70 to 72. Next, line item D, broadband authority resolution, Kevin Gentry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Coming before you today to ask for a supplement request for funding for our 2 VATI grants that we are applying for this year. I think the board is aware of the grants because we've spoken about them at previous board meetings, so I won't go into excruciating detail, but for the benefit of the public who's here and for the board, I'll just hit the high parts here. So basically we have 2 grants. One is a HFC, which is a hybrid fiber coax deployment that we are partnering with Atlantic Broadband, Caroline County, Lancaster County, and Matthews County. And for Middlesex, that means about 15.94 miles of physical plant, passing 150 homes. So that's one resolution. And for that, the contribution from the county is $180,000. Atlantic Broadband has also pledged $180,000, and that equates to a 50% match with VATI supplying the other funding. The Broadband Authority does have $25,000 carried over from last year's grant that we did not, unfortunately, win. That can also be purposed for this grant request. Is there any questions about that particular grant?
Kevin, did we not get a supporting letter from Keith Hodges' office?
I actually pinged him again today. He said that he will do it, but I told Mike, his assistant, that time's of the essence. We really need that in this week.
Well, you'll note that also we have letters of support from Rob Whitman's office, Wayne Jesse's office, the Economic Development Authority, and this is a regional partnership. So we've learned from last year, and we have a lot of hope in our likelihood of actually achieving this. So I just want to take another minute to thank Kevin. He's been behind the scenes really doing all the work, and I've just been a cheerleader. So thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, John. I believe we're also getting a letter of support from Dr. Pete, and we have one from Gordon White, who's our Economic Development Authority chair. So it's a good project. And then we also have our fixed wireless project, which we are cooperating with Gloucester and Matthews, and we are partnering with a company called Open Broadband to do this. And this will be a 355 home deployment with antenna placed on the Jamaica and Saluda Tower. So we'll get to serve that northern end of the county that's really bereft of any serious broadband infrastructure. And it's easier to do with fixed wireless than it is with terrestrial cable. And that match is, I believe, about $73K. I don't have the number in front of me, but it's 355 homes. Any questions about any of that? Or
yes, sir. I got one question.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Kevin, you said the one for up the county is going to cost $73,000, and the first one you say is going to cost roughly, the county going to cost them roughly $180,000.
Correct.
Okay, 180. Okay, I got it.
Any other board members have any questions at this time? If not, do we have a motion for the grants? 2 grants that Kevin proposed?
I'll move that we, this is a co-payment. This is our portion of a payment towards a grant. Is that correct, Kevin?
Sure, it's matching. We provide a 25% match. The ISP will provide 25, and then VATI will provide the delta.
Right, so I move that we accept the proposal to fund 25% of the grant to expand broadband access to those unserved areas of the county.
And there is a budget supplement request in your packet for that.
Betty, could you tell the board what that number is, please? The amount that they would be appropriating?
Right. That would be for $227,877. And that's the $180,000 plus the $72,877,000 for the two, that would be for the two grant applications, less the $25,000 that the Broadband Authority still has remaining from a previous grant match that was approved. And this would come from the general fund balance if it's awarded. This is appropriating it, but not spending it yet unless the grants are awarded.
Mr. Chair, I would like to second.
All right. So we have the motion by Lud and second by Pete Mansfield. We have a motion been properly second. Do we have any more discussion about the grants? If not, roll call.
Mr. Koontz,
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
and Mr. Jesse.
Aye.
So it's unanimous, 5-0.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next, we have line item E, airport project update, Jeff Gore.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not 100% sure Jeff's going to be with us today. We had him on the agenda just in case of a development over the weekend, but it does not look like that has matured. The public comment period exhausts on August the 15th. We'll have him back next month to give the board an update.
All right. Okay, well, thank you, Matt. Next, we have on item F, Hrsd, easement and pump station discussion. Jeremiah Buford.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce Jeremiah Burford. As the board knows, he is our project coordinator and manager on the Interceptor Main project, and he's here to brief the board on some easement needs and property needs for the Cook's Corner collection system. Jeremiah's been with HRC throughout the project, and we're glad to have him on board. We realize you're probably not going to be able to grant the easements tonight, but we wanted to brief you on them in anticipation of next month in September, where we may have a public hearing to award the necessary properties and easements. Jeremiah, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, this is Jeremiah Burford with HRSD. And there's two easements that were, well, one easement that looking to acquire from the county of Middlesex, and then a property acquisition behind the Kits building. And I'm trying to pull up the drawings. I'm having trouble with internet and power and everything, so I apologize.
I can share my screen for you, Jeremiah, if that would be better.
Yeah, if you don't mind, call it in.
Be happy to.
Push everything out.
I'll start with a project overview.
Okay, so there's the property or section of land on the top right from the pen down over to the right and then up. That's going to be the property pump station site. It's not going to be as wide or as long as that, but it's going to, but it's going to house the pump station's currently wooded area. Then we'll clear the woods, just the needed clearing for the building of the pump station. And then the rest will remain as screening, and then put some extra screening up as needed to, but that'd be the property that we're looking to acquire. And then there's going to be an easement coming from the property down and stopping at the EDA and continuing through the EDA property. It's a 30-foot easement. It'll have a 3-inch force main and a 6-inch gravity sewer going through it. And that line will continue up to General Puller Highway, where it'll tie into either the interceptor or the remaining gravity sewer.
Yeah, Jeremiah, I'm trying to find you a good representation of that. There we are.
There it is. So this one would be the easement for ingress, egress, and the gravity and force main coming out of the property. The property would be the property line on the right, and the easement would go through the access driveway that's already there, and installing the force main and gravity sewer. This is the EDA easement that we're requesting that would connect to the County of Middlesex easement and take it up to General Puller Highway.
And just real quick, because someone's probably seen this, this is a misprint. This is County of Middlesex property now. The school board property starts a little further back on the site.
Oh, this is
And I think that's the other easement that y'all need in front of the health department, if my memory serves, along Route 33.
Yeah, and the reason that we're going to need this easement is because there's going to be an offset away from General Puller VDOT requirement, because we're going to be doing a deep gravity sewer installation. So they prefer us away from General Puller. And then we also have the 10-foot setback off of a water main. I believe it's going in here as well. So we have a 10-foot setback off of that as well. So that's the reason we need an extra easement landward instead of roadward side. And those are the 3 easements, or 2 easements and property acquisitions that we're looking for this project from Middlesex.
All right.
Is there any questions?
Anybody have any more questions on this about the easements? If not, I think we're gonna need a motion to be able to have the easements.
Yeah, I think what the board's going to need to do is probably have a public hearing on the donation of the property and the easements to HRSD. Is that correct, Heather?
What do we need as help?
Yes, sir, you can have a public hearing. What we will need, though, before we even get to that point is, I assume the board would like me to review these documents, and I have not been provided a copy of the easements. Is it 2 easements and an actual donation of land, or?
Yes.
Okay, so those deeds need to be provided to me for review, or any other supplemental documentation. And then we can put this on the board's agenda for September if the board would like, and you can have a public hearing.
Yeah, and that's something too. We spoke about it earlier. Not 100% sure we need a public hearing on this because it's a donation to another public entity, but in an abundance of caution, we probably should plan to have one. Okay, Jeremiah, was there anything else you wanted to present to the board?
No, well, there's one thing. I'm sure everybody's seen the targets that were out there along General Puller Highway all the way down to Matthews. Those targets have been removed as of yesterday, and all the aerial data has been collected for the other force mains. So if anyone was curious.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask that our attorney review it, and if we don't need to have a public hearing, that it not be included in next month's. But if we do need it, obviously, we would have it.
Right, from my understanding, Heather, we're gonna have to need a public hearing on this.
Mr. Chairman, so you can have a public hearing, but there are a few things that I need to verify with Mr. Walker and zoning in regards to whether this is in our comprehensive plan. And then that would determine if it is, then a public hearing is not required, but because you were conveying a utility easement and or property to another political subdivision of the Commonwealth of Virginia. So, but nevertheless, you still need to have authorization to sign the contractual documents conveying the property. So I need to see those first. So let's start there.
Okay. All right, I guess we have to wait till you review everything and see which direction we really need to go at that time.
Yes, sir.
And Jeremiah, between now and then, I think we need to get together and make sure we get the proper deed references on the property. The school and the county conducted a boundary line adjustment and adjusted some of the property lines out there. So what is being depicted as school board property is actually Middlesex County property now. The school board property is a little further back, but we'll get all that straight before the end of the month and get the information that Heather needs to her. And that's all we had, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Well, thank you on that. Okay. Next, we got a regular agenda item. We have a budget supplement request, Betty Munson.
Okay, there are, I only have two in here. One is a carryover from a portion of the funds that were remaining in the Cook's Corner renovation project account at the end of June. We had $315,000 budgeted in that line that was left, that we need to roll 49,000 of that into the current year budget to pay for the contract that was issued in June for the construction document preparation for those renovations. And then budget supplement number 10 is to appropriate an emergency services grant that was received from the River Counties Community Foundation in the amount of $1,464.
Do we have a motion for the two budget supplement requests FY 2021 9 and 10?
If there are no questions, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve budget supplement requests FY 2021-9 and 10.
All right, we have a motion by John. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by John, second by Reggie. Any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Koontz,
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse.
Aye. All right. Betty, you again, assistant appointment of two committees.
Okay. We, you actually only have one application in your packet. That is for, from Jamie Barnhart, who wishes to be reappointed to the Airport Committee. His term expires the end of this month. You'll also note that there are some vacancies that we do not have any applications for. One for the Board of Building Code Appeals. They actually need, there are code requirements for the types of positions that can be filled on that board. And the one that they are missing is that of an experienced property manager. So if you know of anyone that could fill that that term as an experienced property manager, that would be good. There's also a vacancy on the Planning Commission from the Jamaica District. Shirley Hart had resigned from that board. So there's an opening there for a term that expires June 30th of 2023. and also Daryl Pierock on the Middle Peninsula Northern Neck Community Services Board. That is a term, they can serve a maximum of three-year terms, and we have not received anything, a notice whether or not he wishes to be reappointed yet. So there's an opening there.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question there?
Yes.
Is Mr. Pierock through three-year terms or only 1 or 2 3-year terms?
It appears he is finishing his second of three-year terms.
Is it appropriate for us to reach out and find out if he'll consider a 3rd term?
I believe
He
Susan,
he can do the third term.
yes.
It's my understanding.
Susan normally sends out, to the current people to find out if they want to reapply or want to be reappointed. That term is not up until the end of December, so you might want to wait. You've got plenty of time for that one.
Okay.
I just wanted to note it because it was in the packet. That was all.
One other question, Betty. The Board of Building Code Appeals, that isn't specific to a district. That could be from any of the 5 districts?
That is correct. That is not tied to a district. It's more tied to the actual positions that need to be on there. And those are, you have to have an experienced contractor, a registered design professional, and an experienced property manager. So you have people that have filled those other 2 positions. We're just lacking the property manager.
Mr. Chair, if there are no questions, I have a motion.
All right.
I move that we reappoint James Barnhart to the Airport Authority
Committee.
Committee.
Committee, we have a motion by John. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by John and second by Reggie. Any more discussion?
Just briefly, I would mention that Jamie has been a tireless advocate for the airport, is behind Wings, Wheels, and Keels historically, and was a big part of starting that and has really done a lot for our airport. And I think that's worth putting on the record.
All right. We have a motion been properly second. If no more discussion, roll call.
Mr. Koontz,
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
and Mr. Jesse.
Aye. All right. Thank you, Betty.
Mhm.
Next, we have County Administrator.
Mr. Chairman, my apologies. I noticed that we have our Economic Development Director on the panel, and I remembered she had asked for about 5 to 10 minutes of the board's time this evening and be added under agency and staff report. Just noticed her and I said, yep, we forgot Miss Michelle. If it's okay with the board, I'd like to ask for y'all to add her to the agenda and let her give a brief update and presentation to the board.
Yes, let's just do that, okay? Michelle?
She doesn't attend these meetings out of her own want, so I think she needs to brief the board on something. She just doesn't do it for fun. I don't know, she might. I don't know, she looks happy.
I just got back from vacation, so. But
we'll do it.
It's good to see everyone. Thank you for allowing me to be fitted into the agenda today. I would like to make a request from the board for $35,000 from the CARES Act for tourism for Virginia River Realm. It was not funded this year. And I got great news. We received notification from Rita McClenny, the CEO of Virginia Tourism, that the U.S. Travel Association received clarification around the end of June that the U.S. Department of Treasury said state and local governments may provide coronavirus relief funds to destination marketing organizations to remarket the tourism industry. I am currently the DMO, the Destination Marketing Organization representing Middlesex County. The only stipulation that they have for the Coronavirus Relief Fund guidelines was that the cost could not be accounted for in the most recent approved budget. And of course, neither one of those were. So I would like to request today a total of $35,000 out of the CARES Act funds. That was an allotted $100,000 under the Middlesex Impacted Tourism Industries Program, or the MIDI, MIDI. $25,000 of that is the EDA's annual contribution, who supports the Virginia River Realm tourism brand for Middlesex County. This year, under their budget, they only approved $7,500 for Virginia River Realm this budget. And the $10,000 that I requested this year for Virginia River Realm from the Board of Supervisors was declined due to the coronavirus. So that is where the $35,000 comes from, and that's my request for today.
All right. Anybody have any questions?
If I may just add very quickly, the board may recall at the end of last month's meeting, the board took some action to reallocate and I guess bring forward the monies from the CARE Act into the new fiscal year. And the monies that Michelle are mentioning were actually covered in that allotment. There wasn't the description as to why, and that's what Michelle is doing here today, giving you the why behind that. We had found out earlier that these monies were eligible for funding, and the allotment was actually presented to the board and adopted with that 35 allotted for that purpose last month.
All right. Okay, well, if not, do we have a motion to approve from the CARE Act for $35,000?
Yes, I would like to make that motion.
All right, we have a motion by Pete. Do
I'll
we have a
second.
second? Second by Love. We have a motion been properly second. Any more discussion? All in favor? Roll call.
Mr. Coontz,
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse.
Aye. All right, motion so carried. All right, Matt, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, if I may, while Michelle's still on, I don't know if she's aware, but the River Realm billboard on 17 is ripped. You're already on that?
We're on it. We are having some difficulty. We've ordered the banner, but there is some structural damage to the billboard itself. So I had to contact the owner of the billboard, and they are in repair of fixing that before we put the new billboard up.
I only asked because I wanted to highlight how you were already on top of it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, y'all have a copy of my report. Wanted to highlight a couple items in that report, but before I did that, I wanted to kind of give some love out and accolades to David Lehman. We both had a very, very early start this morning as the tornado warnings and watches started pinging us. He, I think, was out and about around 2:30 this morning, and he would have been here today to give the board an update, but he was a little tired, so we let him take the afternoon off, much deserved rest. Of course, our thoughts and prayers are with everybody affected over in Lancaster. They took a couple of hits last night as the tornadoes kind of went over us and touched down around Whitestone, it appears, and just hope everyone's safe. As of right now, according to the Virginia Power outage maps, we still have a few people in the county out of power, but Virginia Power seems to be doing a great job at getting everybody connected. And luckily, we don't have 90, 95, 100-degree weather today. So by the time we get folks, back up, they should be all right. It won't be too hot. But I wanted to make sure I mentioned that to the board. We were well served last night with our emergency services coordinator. First item that I wanted to brief the board on was an update on the Middlesex Water Authority. Many of you got the email or the text message from me letting y'all know, or Greg letting y'all know that we were finally authorized to go out to bid. We went out to bid July 21st. The bids for the water system will be due back in on August the 21st. So hopefully we'll have great news to report back in September. But we're very excited. It was a watershed moment, getting that water system out to bid, having all of our I's dotted and T's crossed to be allowed to do so. And had a Herculean effort, I would say, on the part of USDA's rural development. Normally their Atlanta office of the, I guess it's their attorneys, you have a national attorney clearinghouse out of Atlanta. Normally they take up to 2 months reviewing files and cases in order to authorize them to move forward. I'll pat Heather and Betty and myself on the back a little bit. We had everything where it needed to be and just as they wanted it. I think, if my memory serves, Betty, did they turn it around in 2 days? I think the Atlanta office turned it around in 2 days and we were authorized to bid. So that was awesome.
I don't know if it was that quick, but less than
3 days.
Less than 5 anyway. I think we turned it in on Thursday before the July 4th holiday, and I think we found back out on Tuesday or something like that the following week.
It was a lot sooner than we had thought, and we are very thankful for Tara Delaney and Ed Smith with USDA for getting that turned around as fast, along with their Atlanta office. I reported last month that the current rates for the USDA loans are 1.125% for 40 years. We're hoping we can get everything done and signed, sealed, and delivered, so we will be eligible for those rates. And if there are any questions on that, I'd be happy to take them from the board.
Any board member has any questions? Is that it for you, Matt?
Oh, I've got a couple other things, sir, unless you want to cut me short. You've had a long night too. But just wrapping up the water authority, we had bid out the water meters, fire hydrants, valves, and other components separately in order to make sure we got the best price and afforded the most competition out there. We were very pleased with the bids that we had received. We've already received those bids. The water authority staff and the chairman, along with the engineers, have reviewed those bids and found them compliant with our requirements. So we do have apparent low bidders that have been notified. The upcoming bid on the 21st will use those bid prices on water meters, fire hydrants, and the like to move forward with their bids. So by pre-bidding that, we kind of got the best deal, I think. And that was pretty much all I wanted to brief the board on. More later in September on that. You'll notice in my report under the sewer project with Hrsd, of course, Jeremiah was just with us, giving us an update on the Cook's Corner project. The budget estimates are, as of now, in line. They are hoping to get the necessary easements and get everything in place to put that project out to bid in the next month or so. We're waiting on some word back from DEQ as to whether or not they're going to be required to do any additional engineering in order to qualify for their program. We're optimistic that all that will get worked out and they'll be out to bid pretty soon. One thing I will let the board know at this time, the board may be eligible for a planning grant should the board move forward with its own sewer system or authorize the water authority to broaden its scope and move forward with a sewer system. Should either the board or the authority be authorized to do so, then we may be eligible for up to $30,000 in planning grant assistance from the USDA for the project. It may come in handy down in Deltaville as that's continuing to be studied. One of the first decisions we would need to know is who would the applicant need to be for that grant fund. And then just real quick, I'm going to hit a couple of things and then I'll be done, Mr. Chairman. The update that I had on the Hummel Field project was written on July 30th. Of course, we did receive Mr. Perkinson's letter on August the 3rd, so I will reference that letter in any future update that I have. At the time of the writing of the report, though, we had not had that in hand. So now that we do, I'll reference that. Last item, a little bit of an update on the multipurpose path in Deltaville. We're still waiting to hear back from VDOT on any determination, though we are very optimistic. And with that, we've started getting down into layouts a little bit deeper and into a little bit more, I would say, robust preliminary thought and engineering. Maybe something that the board needs to move forward with next month, but we've kind of looked at the different layouts of the different paths. And one thing I just kind of wanted to show the board, a little bit of good news potentially, is in our research we've found, and I'm going to share my screen again so you can see this. We had, and of course all these are just discussions at this time, but we had talked about installing a type of pedestrian multi-purpose path bridge across Mill Creek between the county properties that are owned at the Deltaville Maritime Museum. Bridge similar to this or some other design. But we were really concerned with potential costs. I think we had discussed it last that, wow, a bridge of that magnitude could cost upwards of $1 million, and that could really soak up all of our funding just for one bridge. Well, we found in some of our research, we found in a couple of outfits actually that are involved in pre-engineering and prefabricating these types of bridges. And as you can see on the screen, of course, this isn't a bid price. I want to be clear. This is just a little bit of preliminary planning on our part. The manufacturing comes in well short of $1 million, and site construction and bridge erection total less than $300,000 for a fairly substantial pedestrian bridge across that creek. I took that as very good news. Of course, we've got to do a lot more in the way of vetting this type of thing, but given these types of numbers, this could fit into our grant application very well. And of course, that would achieve a fairly significant goal that we had in the multi-purpose path in Deltaville, and that is connecting the Broad Creek marinas back to the Deltaville Museum and Deltaville Maritime Museum and property, and thereby using that as a launching point to connect everybody back into the center of town, so to speak. I share this with the board just as a little bit of good news. I think the last number that we were batting around was $1 million. This looks like it could be a potential way to erect a bridge. And of course, before we did anything involving any bridges or paths or anything like that with the property down at Holly Point, we would want to involve the Deltaville Maritime Museum Board in the discussions and make sure that they were comfortable and in favor of just about anything like this we would want to do before we pull the trigger on it. But that is my report, Mr. Chairman. I kind of went through it pretty fast. If there are any questions, I'm able to answer.
Anybody have any question for Matt?
Matt, could you send that what you're showing to me? I'd like to review it just from a construction viability standpoint.
Absolutely. I'll forward you the email from the company. We actually had them do a preliminary kind of quote on something. It's, again, not a bid price. It's just a planning tool, so to speak. But
Understood.
I will.
Understood.
Very good.
Matt, is there a cost for the structural and civil engineering?
Well, it's a pre-engineered, prefabricated bridge. When I spoke to their representative to get this price, these are the numbers they gave us. Of course, they realized at that number, they would have to compete in a bid, but it would give us some background information on how to write a spec and potentially bid it out so these prefabrication, pre-engineered bridge companies could bid something. Seems to me it may be a very good way to go, as opposed to having something designed from scratch and then, almost like a stick build, pardon the term, but a stick built type structure. And in fact, what I'll do is I'll forward this, the email from the company's rep to each board member and let them review it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I had.
All right, thank you, Matt. Next, line item 7, county attorney update, state law and amendment ordinance. Heather.
Mr. Chairman, in your packets you have today before you, I've prepared an ordinance to address some housekeeping matters within the county's ordinances. Essentially, as you know, the county ordinances, many of them reference Virginia State Code sections, and some of those code sections have been repealed and replaced or renumbered when Richmond recodifies the code, which has been happening a little more frequently over the last couple of decades. So I prepared an ordinance that simply says that any references to Virginia code in our county ordinances will just be automatically updated to include those amendments. Just kind of cleans that up and ensures the board's intent that their ordinances are in proper legal format. So what I'm asking for today is first to address any questions you may have, but second, if there are none, that the board by consensus put this on its September agenda for a public hearing and its ultimate consideration and adoption.
Any board member have any questions? Well, if not, would you like to put this on the board, for adoption of next month? Let Heather work on it, and we vote on it next month at the public hearing.
I certainly.
She needs a consensus, basically.
Yeah. If everyone can nod their heads or say yes or no.
Yes.
I'm getting yeses. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
will put that on the September agenda
Okay.
for a public hearing. Thank you, Mr.
All right.
Chairman. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Heather. Appreciate that. Next, unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business from any board member? All right, I'm not hearing anything. So do we have, how about any new business? John?
Very briefly, I know we talked about VATI grants, but I wanted to make the board aware that Kevin, our IT director and broadband executive director, has been working with Steve Dunkel, the director of IT at Middlesex County Public Schools. There is an opportunity through what's called the Vision Grant that we're pursuing somewhat jointly. It'll be through Middlesex County Public Schools, but we've been working in conjunction with Atlantic Broadband to understand the number of students in the county that do not have internet. And from the addresses that we have, we believe there's 724 homes with school-age children. We think 424 of those 724 homes have active broadband through Atlantic Broadband, which leaves us roughly 300 that we're trying to understand what they have or don't have, and we're pursuing an opportunity through the Vision Grant to either augment or subsidize the fiber availability or look into other solutions if there is no fiber availability, whether it be a WOW. Kevin, can you help me with what WOW stands for by chance?
Are you talking about fixed wireless or?
It's that wireless station that we might be able to pop up and make a micro pop.
Micro pops, yeah, where we might be able to put something up in a community or neighborhood and service an area, a geographic area.
Yeah, suffice it to say, what jumped off at a high level for me was 724 homes with school-age children. 424 have fiber, leaving 300 that are finding some other way to get internet access in a time where we're right now envisioning being virtual, potentially with 2 days of in-school education for those kids that or families that want it. Just wanted to make the board aware that we're working with the school district to see if we can get our numbers closer to 100% with the eventual goal of having internet for all school-age children. It's not going to happen overnight, but we have the Vision Grant application due next Wednesday, and we're working with the schools on that. And I just want to make everybody aware that that's one other avenue that the Broadband Authority is supporting the public schools to try to make sure that virtual learning is possible for all of our students.
All right, thank you, John. Nobody else have any new business? We're gonna go head on to line item 9, matters presented to the board. Pete, you have anything?
Nope.
All right, Lud?
Give me 1 second, Mr. Chairman. Just want to check my list. Just an update on sewer committee. The committee itself is basically standing by as the engineering contracts or the engineering proposals are being reviewed, and discussions are underway with Timmons Engineering about being a partner in order to assess how to move forward most cost effectively. And so that's why there is no progress update on sewer this month. We hope to have one next month. That's the only thing that I have.
All right. Reggie. Hey, Reggie.
I don't have anything.
Anything? John?
Yes.
You have anything, John?
Reggie, did you have something?
No.
Okay, no, I'm good too.
You good? And no, all I have is I know that our VACO conference is they're not going to have that this year, as you know. I mean, they're gonna do it virtually this year. So I do know I got a report on that. Everything on the VACO gonna be virtual. And that's about it. Do we have a motion to recess until we have night meeting?
So moved.
Motion by John. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Reggie and Lud. The motion probably second. Roll call at this time.
Mr. Coombs,
I'd just like to note in the discussion that Matt Walker had a part in getting us out early for a change, and I appreciate that. Aye.
Mr. Mansfield,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse.
Aye. All right. We see you back this evening.